TorahCafe.com.
Okay, so the first thing we need to do is rearrange our heads and change the way we think, just for starters. An explorer goes down to Australia, the first explorer, comes back from Australia, and he says, there's an animal down there that hops around on its hind legs and carries its baby in a pouch in its stomach. And you say, I'm a little too intelligent for that. I ain't going to believe a story like that. Come on. I'm not that naive. I'm too intelligent to believe that. Would that be an intelligent response? Of course, now we know there are kangaroos, so now we know it's not. No, but way back then. Here's how the conversation would go. The explorer would say, there's an animal down there I saw that hops around on its hind legs and carries its babies in a pouch. And the listener says, that's ridiculous. I never heard of such a thing. The explorer says, exactly. That's what I get the big bucks for, to come back and tell you something you never heard of. I'm going to come back and tell you there's a cat there? And the guy says, but I never saw such a thing. Exactly. That's what exploring means, to see something you never saw before or to hear something you never heard before. So what is the objection to a piece of news that is fantastical? You doubt it until someone proves it to you, or you accept it until it's proven false. What's the more intelligent way?
Reserve judgment.
I know. The conventional wisdom is doubt everything until it's proven, because you don't want to end up with egg on your face. That's not an intelligent reaction. That's fear. That's protecting yourself emotionally by not accepting anything unless you're absolutely sure. Intelligence has a very different reaction. To the intelligent mind, every piece of information I never heard before is a celebration. You live and learn. Imagine if the cavemen were skeptical. There's another hill over the hill? I don't believe that. The bear went over the mountain? I don't think so. I never saw a bear go over a mountain. So let's rearrange our thinking. If I never heard it and I never saw it, then I just learned something new. That's great. It's not necessarily true. But that's not a reason to doubt it. See what I mean? I don't know. There was a woman in class once, in our program in Beis Chana. Anything I said, she said, but you don't know that for sure. I said, well, yeah, I do. No, you can't know that for sure. Maybe not. And it was a little ridiculous. So at some point I said, will you stop already? Maybe not, maybe not. Maybe your mother's not really your mother. You were switched in the hospital. She goes, oh, my God. Wait a minute, I didn't mean to add another doubt to your mind. Doubt, by the way, is totally unnecessary in life. You can go through life without ever having doubts. I mean, think about it. What is a doubt? You think there's life out there on other planets? I doubt it. You doubt it. Why can't you simply say, I have no idea? Which is true. Most times when people say, I doubt, they could just as easily say, I am absolutely sure that I know nothing about this. There's no doubt about that. Can you do brain surgery? Oh, I doubt it. Oh, well, take a chance. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. And perform surgery. Come on. Most cases when we say doubt, we mean I don't know. Why does it hurt to say that? I don't know. But when I hear something new, that's great. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe you're switched in the hospital. These maybes don't add to your life. They restrict you. They limit you. Science has a completely different set of rules from life. Because the scientist is governed by certain rules. So if he can't repeat the experiment and come up with the same results consistently, he doesn't have a scientific fact. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Water runs downhill. Try it. Try it under all circumstances and see if it's consistent. And if it's not, water runs downhill anyway. Whether the scientists can prove it or not. So the whole idea of proof, oh, you can't prove that. Proof is appropriate in a laboratory, not in life. So, for example, you're a psychiatrist, and you come home to your spouse, and you say, hi, how was your day? Or the spouse says to you, how was your day? And you say, do you really want to know, or are you trying to cover up on something that your mother said to you 30 years ago? If you do that to your spouse, you're going to be single for a long time. You don't do that. Leave that at the office. That's fine when you're treating patients. It doesn't work in life. Same is true with the scientist. The scientist comes home and his wife says, oh, I missed you. Where's the evidence? You can't prove that. Yesterday you didn't miss me, so something is inconsistent here. Yeah, you do that, you're going to be divorced in a week. So what belongs in the laboratory, what is appropriate in your clinic, don't bring it home. That's not how you live. Life has a completely different set of rules. Life has to be enthusiastic. Life has to be innocent and uncomplicated. Life has to be trusting, secure. If you need proof for everything, somebody has lied to you too often. So where do we get this skepticism, the cynicism, the doubts? Because somebody told me there was a Santa Claus, and there is not. Well, nobody ever told me that. I've been called Santa Claus, but nobody ever... I go to South America, and I try to learn a little Spanish, you know. I go there quite often. And I pick up a few words, and I come back to the States, and I forget. The only words I remember is Papa Noel. Because I hear it so often. All the kids point at me and say, Papa Noel. I thought it meant there goes the rabbi. Doesn't mean that. So when we want to know what's real, we want to know what's true, that's a completely different subject than scientific fact. So here's an important distinction. There is fact and there is truth, and they're not the same thing. They're both real, but different reality. Fact means the reality as it is or as it happens to be. Truth means the reality as it is supposed to be, as it must be. They're very different. For example, most human beings are decent and good. True? It's true, but it's not a fact. Fact is, people are horrible. That's a fact. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. So the truth is, a human being with intelligence is good. For whatever reason, this truth has not become a fact. Jews don't eat pork. True or false? Jews don't eat pork. That's true. But Jews do eat pork. That's a fact. They're not the same. Every mother loves her child. True. Mothers throw their children or babies into garbage cans. That's a fact. So when the fact and the truth are not the same, how is it resolved? The truth cannot surrender to the fact because true is true. The fact is the reality as it happens to be. It doesn't have to be. And so the fact, sooner or later, must surrender to the truth. Now, here's a very funny thing. When the fact surrenders to the truth, we call it a miracle. You know what a miracle is? When the fact surrenders to the truth. Jews left Egypt on their way to Mount Sinai because they had an appointment. God wanted to talk to them at Mount Sinai. And all of a sudden, there's an ocean in the way. There's the sea. So the Jews say, what should we do? God said, go to Mount Sinai. They said, yeah, but. There's a sea. And God said, so what? Go to Mount Sinai. They said, well, what about the sea? So they walked into the sea, and what happened? The sea got out of the way. Miracle of miracles. But what actually happened? The sea doesn't have to be there. It's real and it's a fact that it is there. But it doesn't have to be there, so get out of the way. Because we have to get to Mount Sinai. So when the fact surrenders to the truth, we call it a miracle. A person is in a car accident, has a near-death experience, but survives and recovers. Miracle. Thank God. What's the miracle? People shouldn't die. That's true. People do die from car accidents. That's a fact. Well, in this case, the fact surrendered to the truth. And we love when that happens. Because then everything sounds right. Things should be the way truth dictates, not the way fact dictates. And this is a very real experience. The entire Chabad movement, the entire Lubavitcher philosophy, was threatened severely under Stalin. Most Chassidim were in Russia, and Stalin made it impossible. That was the fact. It was impossible to raise a Jewish child with Judaism under Stalin. So some people were completely naive, and they said, we don't recognize facts, we don't believe in facts, we're just going to do our thing, and they're dead. Some people said, look at the facts. I mean, come on, be realistic. Look at the facts. Stop teaching your kid Judaism. Don't practice anything until Stalin dies, and then we'll pick it up where we left off. Well, they assimilated, they're gone, their kids are atheists, communists, whatever. What Chabad did, don't ignore the facts. If you're going to make a yeshiva, make it underground. Don't be naive. Make it underground. If they close down a mikveh in the city, build another one outside in the suburb where they don't find you so quickly. In other words, deal with the fact. Don't ignore it. Stalin is real. But never start believing the fact. Believe the truth. Stalin will die, Judaism will continue. And what's happening today in Russia? Amazing. The fact surrendered to the truth. The coming of Mashiach means that this split between fact and truth can't go on forever. The coming of Mashiach means every fact will be the truth, and every truth will become a fact. So people are basically good. That's true. It's not yet a fact. It's got to become a fact. People should not die. That's true. The fact is people die. It's got to stop. The facts have got to surrender to the truth so that the world will be not only what it happens to be, but what it's supposed to be. Now, who knows what the world is supposed to be? It seems like we are the only ones left. By default, we are the only ones left who have any idea of what the world should be, because we have a Torah. And that is our message to the world. We're not trying to change anything. We're trying to make the world what it is supposed to be, and therefore will inevitably be, because the truth will always win in the end. The question is, when is the end? And one of the things that's going to happen when fact becomes truth, the suffering will, of course, end. But more than that, once we get to the truth, all the suffering of the past will make a lot of sense. Because when it surrenders to the truth, it becomes part of the truth. So one of the things we're looking forward to in the coming of Mashiach is the ability to truly heal from all the pain of the past, not only by surviving it or tolerating it, but by actually seeing the goodness of it so that there is nothing bad left. So this brings us to our topic. Why do bad things happen to good people? It's a very popular question. Everybody is bothered when something bad happens to good people. Actually, it doesn't bother me that much. What really bothers me is when good things happen to bad people. That is disturbing. If you talk about injustice, why do good things happen to bad people? How come nobody asks that? Why do bad things happen to bad people? Nobody cares? By the way, what is a bad thing? Oh, bad things are... What's a bad thing?
Something that deviates from the truth.
Your girlfriend dumps you. Bad thing? Exactly, it depends. Sometimes you got to really thank God for...
Something you don't have a reason for?
If you want to have a correct definition of bad, is death bad? Not necessarily.
If you don't have a reason for it.
Right. Most people can't come up with a good reason for it. No, it's tragic. But is it bad? Is pain bad? Yeah, when I have it. Your pain? Pain is not necessarily bad, like labor pain, childbirth. It's kind of painful, I hear. But is it bad? Actually, most women, kind of in the middle of their 9th month, they can't wait for the pain already. Get on with it. But false labor pain, oh, that's bad. Death is not necessarily bad, but wrongful death, oh, that's bad. Who needs that? An operation is painful, dangerous. Is it bad? No, unless it was supposed to be performed on the guy in the other bed. Then it's bad. Because there's no explanation. In other words, the word bad, if you're using it correctly, describes something that happened that shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened, then it's bad. But if it should happen, well, then it can be very painful. It can be tragic. It can be frightening and dangerous, but you can't call it bad.
You say should or shouldn't have happened.
Exactly. Exactly right. If the word bad means this shouldn't have happened, who knows what should or shouldn't happen? My daughter runs a summer camp. A few years ago, one of the kids was playing and fell and broke his leg. The father wanted to sue the camp. Negligence, horrible, you don't watch the kids, and blah, 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 blah. A couple of months after camp, he calls to apologize. He says, I'm sorry I was such a pain in the neck. I really want to make up, and because my kid was in a cast with his broken leg. And one day I had to take him into the hospital to have the cast removed. And I missed a day of work. It was September 11th, and I work at the World Trade Center. I wasn't there that day because I was taking the cast off his leg. So was that the worst thing that ever happened to them when he broke his leg? Painful. But all of a sudden, can you claim that that should not have happened? So what do we know? What the bleep do we know about what should or shouldn't happen? So here's the point. Do bad things happen to good people? Why do bad things happen to good people? The answer is it never happened. A bad thing never happened. Not to good people, not to bad people, not to animals, not to bugs. Nothing bad has ever happened. And it can't happen. Because unless you have more than one God, no bad thing can happen. An animal dies out in the jungle. Was it supposed to happen? The answer is yes. Well, how do you know? Because it happened. What causes things to happen? God, His plan. Without the plan, without God, nothing would happen. So what does it mean? This happened, but it shouldn't have. That means in God's plan it's not acceptable, but the other God came and made it happen anyway. What other God? There's only one God. So when we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, we only believe in one God, what we're actually saying is, nothing can go wrong. Nothing can go wrong. because nothing can happen without it supposing to happen. So that if it's not part of God's plan, it cannot happen, because who's going to make it happen? So nothing bad has ever happened. Did painful things happen? Yes. Did tragedies occur? Yes. But bad? No. And here's another interesting thing. What makes people depressed? What makes people give up on life? Pain? Hardly ever. Tragedy? Hardly ever. Because if pain and tragedy made people give up on life, we would be gone by now. There would be no human race anymore. We would all have given up. I mean, the amount of pain and tragedy that occurs in the world. What makes people depressed? The thought that this should not have happened. That makes us crazy. Not only because of what happened, but if something happens and it shouldn't have happened, then what's next? Then that's it. It's unpredictable. There's no rhyme or reason. You don't know what's going to happen next. You give up. Without that question, without this feeling that it shouldn't have happened, we can survive anything. Viktor Frankl came up with a whole school of psychology based on this idea. He went through the Holocaust, went to the concentration camps, and he noticed people who thought there was some purpose to what was going on survived. And those who thought that the world had just gone insane couldn't handle it. So the belief that nothing bad can ever happen because everything happens by divine plan is life-saving. It literally helps you survive. So why do we pray? Why do we complain to God, which is a very Jewish activity? Why? If we know that nothing bad is happening, what are we kvetching about? Here's the important application to your life. Anyone with a drop of decency will complain about an injustice. You don't have to be sensitive. You don't have to be special. If you see an injustice, you're going to complain. You've been doing it since you were 4. That's not fair. How come he gets to 4 years old? And you're complaining about injustice. It doesn't take any brilliance or any sensitivity. The real trick is, will you complain when something painful happens to another person that makes perfect sense to you? Or, once it makes sense to you, it doesn't bother you anymore. Jews complain knowing that there is no injustice. Everything that happens is meant to happen. And we complain anyway. That's good. That is sensitive. God comes to Avraham and says, the people of Sodom are exceedingly evil. I'm going to destroy them. Avraham should have said, well, yeah, go for it. I mean, if they're exceedingly evil, I mean, what's... So if I see Sodom being destroyed, I know why. God told me himself. They're exceedingly evil, so wipe them out. Avraham complains. That's Jewish. Because by nature, once I understand, I don't care anymore. For example, if you ask me for advice about an investment or about something, and I say, don't do it. But you go ahead and do it anyway and get yourself into trouble. And now you're really messed up. and you come to me and say, can you help me out? I'm really messed up here. I said, I know. I told you not to do it. You say, yeah, I know. I should have listened to you, but really now I got a real problem. Can you help me out? I tried to help you. I told you not to do it. I don't care because I'm right. Next time you'll listen to me. Yeah, but can you help me out now? Well, I tried. I told you not to do it. No compassion because I know why it happened. That's terrible. So Elie Wiesel is often asked, why was there a Holocaust? As if it was his fault or something. Because he was there and he should have stopped it. So usually he says, I don't know, what are you asking me? One time, this guy comes over to him and says, so why? Why was there a Holocaust? And he says, I can't tell you. The guy says, you know and you don't want to tell me? He says, that's right. The guy says, why won't you tell me? He says, because if I tell you, you'll become a Nazi. The guy says, I'm Jewish. What are you talking about? How would I become a Nazi? His answer was really brilliant. He said, look, you're asking me why there's a Holocaust because you're disturbed. It bothers you. You can't sleep. How can 6 million innocent people be liquidated? Such a horrible word. Killed is better. But they weren't killed, they were liquidated. And it bothers you, it disturbs you. You can't sleep well at night. So you come to me and say, tell me why. I'll tell you why. And you'll say, oh, so that's why. Okay, I can sleep now. Now you're a Nazi. You're asking me to make you feel comfortable with a Holocaust. Only Nazis can do that. So what are you asking? Truth is, when we ask why was there a Holocaust, the last thing we want is an answer. Don't you dare answer that question. Because by answering it, you're saying it was okay. It's not okay. Yeah, well, I'll explain it. No, you won't explain it. And that's why people complain. I've been asking this question of everybody I meet, and nobody can answer my question. You don't want an answer. If you really wanted an answer, you're a Nazi. We don't want an answer. We want a change. We want the fact to surrender to the truth. Not a good answer. So what do we complain about? You hear this all the time. A civilian was killed in Israel. A civilian. What are you doing? And if he's a soldier, then it's okay. What happened here? A guy puts on a uniform, he deserves to die? What is this distinction between a soldier and a civilian? Getting killed can ruin your day, no matter how you're dressed. We should object to the truth, not to the fact. The truth is there should be no suffering. There should be no dying. There should be no war. Well, certainly not for a civilian. What is that? What is that? Because you know that if you put on a uniform, you might get shot, so then it's okay? In other words, once I understand the suffering, it doesn't bother me anymore. That's not nice. So people ask, why do bad things happen to good people? The sages ask, why do the righteous suffer? It's a very different question. Why do the righteous suffer means I know there's a reason. I know it's all for the good. I know nothing happens unless it's supposed to happen and it's meant to happen. I know that. still bothers me. The Catholic Church used to kill midwives. They called them witches, but they were midwives. Why would they want to kill midwives? Because the Bible say that you should give birth in pain, and these midwives come along and take away the pain. They must die. You ever hear anything so perverted? The Bible says women will give birth in pain. How dare you take away the pain? The Bible also says that if you see a poor man, feed him. How dare you? God made him poor. Who are you to change and to interfere? That is ridiculous. The whole point of morality is some people are dying, save them. Some people are hungry, feed them. Some people are ignorant, teach them. Some people are in pain, take it away. So again, once we know why there's pain, we get comfortable with it. Why are women in labor experiencing so much pain? Well, the Bible says. Yes, the Bible says that there will be pain. So that's it. Now you're happy. That's not moral. That's just barely decent. So even when we know why there's pain, we object. Can't there be a painless way to the same goodness, to the same... So here's how we have to look at things. The purpose of creation is to elevate that which is wrong and to make sweet that which is bitter and to bring light to the darkness. Now we wake up in this world and there's darkness and there's pain and there's bitterness and we say, what in the world's going on? Well, let's try this again. The plan is that there will be a world. It will be an ugly world. It will be an ungodly world. It will be a painful place. Your job is to make it better. So when you see something painful and ugly, don't panic. Don't go into shock. This is our job. Whatever pain you see, whatever ugliness you see, what can you do to fix it? Every now and then in history, we came across an evil that really paralyzed us. We never expected anything that bad. And for a few years, we're knocked out, can't function. But we recover. And life is good, even after these horrible things are experienced. Let me tell you one beautiful little story. Came to Minnesota in 1970. In St. Paul, there was a tiny little congregation that was still alive. They had maybe 12 members who attended, and the average age was 79. But those few people who came were such delightful people. Amazing. Their faith and their innocence, and they were just beautiful people. We have a Lubavitcher custom, which I'm sure you've heard of, that the Shabbos before the new month, we read the entire Tehillim. And it's best if you can do it with a minyan. So there were three of us, three shluchim, three Lubavitchers, and we're thinking, who can we get to join us for the Tehillim on Shabbos morning? And there were two brothers from Poland, delightful people, full of life, full of good humor. And they were a little bit more educated than the others, than the American-born. I go over to one of the brothers. His name was Yidel. I said, Yidel, how would you like to come one Shabbos after 4, early in the morning, to say the whole Tehillim with us? He says, only one Shabbos out of 4? I said, yeah, just one. He said, why? Why only one? I said, that's our custom. Yeah, if you want to do more, that. He says, no, my brother and I, we say the whole Tehillim every Shabbos morning. And I must have looked stunned. He said, I'll tell you why. We were in the concentration camp for 3 years. The Allies came in and liberated the camp. This is something people don't realize. They came in, they opened up the gates, and they said, the war is over. You're free to go. And we were standing there by the gate, totally panicked and paralyzed because we had no place to go. Go where? The shtetl is gone, family is gone. Go where? And how do I get there? It was almost more comfortable to stay in the camp. So they're standing there completely lost. They don't know what to do. And as they're standing there, this Polish woman comes towards them with a big basket and hands them a loaf of bread. He says, my brother and I shook hands, and we promised each other that for this kindness that God has shown us, we will say the whole Tehillim every Shabbos morning. They don't make people like that anymore. They're standing at the gates of a concentration camp, and they can't get over God's kindness. Where do they get this enthusiasm for life? How is it that the first thing they did when they came to the United States is get married and have children? After what you saw? The picture of life that you just experienced? You want to bring kids into this world? Yes, they couldn't wait. Start a family, have children. Where do they get this from? How does this work? You would think people would give up. In fact, Eli Wiesel himself, the first time he spoke to the Rebbe, told the Rebbe that he has no intentions of having children. Not in this world. And the Rebbe had to convince him. Whatever reason God has for putting Jews into Egypt, that's just strategic. Part of fixing a messed up world means Jews have to go down to Egypt, which is particularly messed up. That's strategic. But when God takes us out of Egypt, that's personal. When a person gets sick, God forbid, it's strategic. It's part of what has to happen in the process of fixing this world. But when a person is cured, that's personal on God's part. When I send you down to Egypt, that's a job. When I take you out of Egypt, that's because you're mine. Like, bring home the troops. Bring them home. Isn't that beautiful? But who should bring them home? The government. Well, the government is the one who sent them. A king sends his people to war, and then he is so thrilled when they come home. What are you thrilled about? If you don't like them at war, why'd you send them? Again, the answer is, if we're talking about a decent king or a real president, you send people to war because it's necessary. You bring them home because they're your children. It's a different thing. So God gives us difficulties because that's the job. That's what has to happen. But when the difficulty goes away, that's personal. That's because he likes you. Not part of the strategy. So how does a guy come out of a concentration camp and thank God for a loaf of bread? Because he knows. The concentration camp was a strategy. It was a strategic move. How, why, I don't know. But when God sends you a loaf of bread and you're hungry, that's personal. Huge difference. So, sum it up. Do bad things happen to good people? Bad things don't happen because who's going to cause it? Things don't happen by themselves. There isn't another God hiding somewhere that makes bad things happen. We don't believe that the devil has an agenda of his own. Only God moves and shakes the world. So whatever happens was meant to happen. Why? I don't know, and I don't like it, and I will not stop complaining until the fact becomes the truth. That's why we have to have Mashiach. Mashiach doesn't mean some guy is going to come and give you candy.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad either. Get candy, get candy, get candy. But the reason we need Mashiach is because we are never going to be content having fact be different from truth. It doesn't sit right with us. There's a certain objection built in. When things are not the way they should be, it can't be good enough. So even though there's a reason, but if it's not the way it should be, not good enough. So we're working towards making a world in which the truth prevails and all fact surrenders to the truth. So if I stop a guy in the street and I say, come, put on tefillin, he says, I don't need that. Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact. But come, put on tefillin, because that's the truth. Because that's the truth. Jews don't eat pork, it's true. You know Jews who do eat? Well, that's a fact. And since when are we intimidated by fact? The bumblebee should not be able to fly. Got a big body with tiny wings. Can't fly. Can't. But nobody told him, so he flies. That's Jewish. We can't fly. Come on, it's a fact. We're a tiny minority. We're outnumbered. Nobody wants us. Nobody likes us. Everybody's trying to stifle us and silence us. And this can't work. Yeah, but that's just a fact. The truth is, we're here forever. We're here forever. This priest, I was talking to him about Jewish whatever, and he says, yeah, but why, so how come you suffer so much? And I didn't like that. I love to talk about how much we suffer. But for some reason, when he asked it, it didn't feel right. Jews get together, all we talk about is how much we suffer. You think you had a bad week. Wait till you hear about what. You ran your car into a tree? How high up the tree? You should have seen my car. We love to suffer and we love to talk about it. But when the priest said, so why do you suffer so much? There was some hint there that I didn't like. So I said, we suffer? What gives you the impression? He says, oh, come on, throughout all of history, you always suffered. I said, no, throughout all of history, we were always there. So if you hang around for 4,000 years, you had a lot of headaches. We don't suffer more, we live longer. But the Romans didn't suffer. Of course not, they died. Dead people don't suffer. So what makes you think we suffer? And by the way, I said, how many holidays have you got on your calendar? 2? And one of them celebrates his death? Have you seen our calendar? I think we're having more fun. And it's true. The fact is that we can't even exist. And the truth is we're having more fun. We have more life. We're more in touch with truth. And the fact, well, it's going to have to surrender. Because the facts always surrender to the truth. I think that the confusing question, whatever God does is meant to be. I mean, that's what it means. But what about what people do? Or monkeys? If we have free will, can't we cause suffering that wasn't meant to happen? Because I have free will. If I decide I want to hurt you, you're in trouble. And it wasn't meant to happen because I wasn't supposed to do that. That's where it gets a little complicated. Free will can be very confusing too. Free will means I am free to choose my will. Doesn't mean I'm free to do what I want. And that's rather obvious because so many times I wanted to do something and I couldn't do it. And I can't complain, hey, what happened to my free choice? Read my lips. Free choice. You made your choice. That's all the freedom you're going to get. So you decided to rob a bank? That's it. That's your freedom of choice. Now, are you going to rob the bank? No, because you're a schlemazel. You don't know how to rob banks. You're the gang that can't shoot straight. So you can't complain if you make your choice and fail. You can't complain to God. Hey, what happened to my free choice? You made your choice. So if you decide to shoot somebody and miss, your choice was made. That was your free will. But must your victim die? That's not part of your choice. That's his destiny. And his destiny says, not today. He's not dying today. So really, what makes you a murderer? The corpse? No, your choice to kill. Your choice to kill makes you a murderer. Will somebody die? That's up to God. This guy decided to commit suicide. I remember it was 20 years ago or something. He went up to the 78th floor of the Empire State Building. There's a window there. Now you can't open it, but in those days you could open it. He opened the window and jumped out. Nobody told him that the wind up there is very, very strong. The wind blew him back against the building, and he fell on the ledge of the 76th floor. And he was really bruised. Had a terrible headache, but he didn't die. Now, did he have freedom of choice? Yes. He chose to kill himself? Yes. He acted on it? Yes. Did he die? Not today. Sorry. So the outcome, the result, the consequence of your choice is not part of your choice. That's God's business. Even when you're trying to kill yourself. Certainly when you're trying to kill somebody else. So when God gives you freedom of choice, he doesn't guarantee you a victim every time you're in a bad mood. This is really a significant concept. If you ever feel that you are suffering from somebody else's bad choice, you're wrong. No one can hurt you. No one can hurt you, even those who desperately try, even those who are devoted to hurting you. You cannot get hurt because of another person. The hurt can come through another person, but from God, not from another human being. Where do we see this? Yosef's brothers sold him into slavery. First they wanted to kill him, then they threw him in a pit, and then they sold him. Now he is the viceroy of Egypt with all the power in the world, and they're sure that he's going to take revenge. So they beg, they apologize, they plead with him, please don't punish us. What was his answer? His answer was, you had bad intentions. But God had it all planned out for the good. So why would I be angry at you? I have no reason to be angry at you. Because what happened to me was God's plan, not yours. But it's interesting that he didn't let them off the hook. He said, you had bad intentions. Do something about that. Get some help. Because you're bad. But that has nothing to do with me. What happened to me comes from God. So people can have bad intentions and really want to hurt you. But if you do get hurt, that's God's decision. Otherwise, for all their bad intentions, you will not get hurt. How many times has somebody tried to hurt you and you're completely unaware? So, everything that happens is part of God's plan. A human being's choice can be bad, but that's where it ends. You made your choice, now God decides what's going to happen. That makes us much more moral. Because if you decide to hurt somebody, and that person doesn't get the insult, that doesn't make me any better. I can't claim to be a nice guy because I never hurt her. All I can do is try to hurt her, and I tried. So I'm as bad as I can get. The guy who says, yeah, I tried to shoot him, but I missed. Well, now you're a murderer and a schlemazel. You're no less a murderer. Huh? The only way I can become be a murderer is by choosing to be. That's all I can do. After that, once I let go of the arrow, I'm not in control anymore. So I let go of the arrow, that's it. That makes me a murderer. So all those rockets that the Hamas fire into Israel, which stunningly, miraculously doesn't hurt anybody. Have you noticed this? There's something so weird. You listen to the news. 3 rockets were fired in, no injuries. Next. Well, wait a minute. Say that again. 3 rockets were fired, no injuries? And this happens twice a week, every week? Say, well, they really are bad shots. By accident, more people should get hurt. This daily miracle is absolutely stunning. So they're so ineffective. Oh, really? Those rockets blow up. Yeah, but they're always in a garbage dump. Nobody's ever home when they land. What is going on here? This is what, 10 years? This is 4. That's why Israel gets up in the UN. 12,000 rockets were fired at us. Yeah, but nobody got hurt, so who cares? So, excuse me, how do you fire 12,000 rockets and nobody gets hurt? I mean, we're talking about Israel, not Texas. There isn't that much empty space. Anyway, but the point is, once they fire the rocket, they are terrorists. The fact that God blows the rocket into the ocean, that's not to their credit. See, I'm not so bad. Yeah, you're bad. You're as bad as you can get. So that gives us a much more stringent definition of morality. You're a murderer as soon as you pull that trigger. How significant is it that you choose, even if it doesn't turn out that way? I mean, imagine a daughter calls her mother and says, Ma, I didn't mean to hurt you. Does that make a difference? Of course. Our intentions to God are so significant that it changes everything. If you meant well, he loves you, even though you messed up. And if you meant evil, even though it turned out okay, he's not happy with you. So freedom of choice is its own significance. It doesn't have to have consequence, to be significant. And the thing with Mashiach is this. We don't know which acts are the ones that God is waiting for so that he can bring Mashiach. It could be the very next thing I do could tip the scales. So we have to believe that every good act, everything we do to prepare the world for Mashiach might be that final straw that's going to bring Mashiach. And it is part of God's plan. But plan is not the same as act. So God has a plan, but we got to go through we got to do it. So it's exciting to think that after 5,000 years of really great people doing really great things, all that is left for us to do is one more tiny goodness that will make all the difference in the world. So let's get on with it. If you can do a mitzvah, don't think petty. Don't think tiny. Think global. If you can bring Mashiach 1 minute sooner, you know what that means? 1 minute sooner? If Mashiach comes 1 minute later, it means there will be one more moment of human suffering. You know what that means? 7 billion minutes of suffering. Why is that acceptable? So for myself, if you tell me Mashiach is coming next week, I'm fine. Next week is great. In fact, I can get my act together. It's good. I need a little time. So for me, next week is wonderful. But that means another week of human suffering. That's horrible. That's horrible. And if you're not worried about the whole world, how about just the Jewish world? 15 million minutes of Jewish suffering? Why is that acceptable? Or just your neighbor. You can wait a week because you're not in trouble. He's in trouble. He can't afford a week. So, get excited. We need Mashiach now, not tomorrow. Because tomorrow means 24 more hours of suffering. Does that bother you? It should. So do a mitzvah. Maybe it's the one. Like a doctor who says, if God wants him to live, he'll live. If not, so what do I have to get up in the middle of the night? Come on, you're a doctor. Get up. Maybe you're the one who is meant to save him. Maybe you're the one who is meant to complete the job of correcting the world and getting it back on track. So in our lives from now on, before Rosh Hashanah, we should all have a good, sweet year. A good year means all the facts should be what they are. A sweet year means all the facts should match the truth. That we shouldn't have to explain anything because there are no further questions. The fact and the truth are the same. Life is good. So have a good year, a sweet year, a really true year full of Jewish stuff which will never go away. And the facts, they're just facts. Like the bumblebee, just keep on flying.